When you go to the dentist, have you ever wondered why it's so common to see some little kid bawling and screaming out of fear in the waiting room? Have you ever wondered what's going through their heads? What torture they must be expecting to endure? Of course, most of the time, they're just overreacting, as little kids tend to do. But don't write them off just yet, because there is something real to that childish phobia. I'm sure everyone can relate to having to sit through something uncomfortable at the dentist. But there have been some dentists out there who really do justify the screams of small children. And I can attest. When I was about 10 years old, I was having some trouble with losing the last of my baby teeth. Well, just one of them, actually. I only had a few left, but there was one that had gotten fused to the bone of my jaw. It isn't actually uncommon. And like me, most people find out during routine x-rays. My family dentist said that most of the remaining baby teeth were fine and would fall out normally. But there was one that would need to be surgically removed. He recommended us to some sort of pediatric specialist in oral surgery. I was nervous about what they called surgery. I mean, I was only 10, but my parents told me they would numb me so it wouldn't hurt at all. And I'd had a regular experience at the dentist in the past. I wasn't one of those little crying kids. I didn't try to get out of it or anything. My main concern was just making sure I would get all my adult teeth. But on the day of, I got a bit anxious. The music in the waiting room was oddly loud, much louder than any dentist or doctor I'd ever been to. My mom didn't seem to notice. She checked me in and found us a seat, and after a little while of being bored in the soulless waiting room, it was my turn. The dentist came out of the back all sweaty and out of breath for some reason. He had a clipboard in his hand from which he read and called out my name.
Abe?
She wasn't just old, but she wasn't even looking good for her age. She had this awful hunchback and this drooping, crooked jaw. Her head looked way too big for her body, but the glasses she wore were somehow still disproportionately wide for her face. Even worse were her crusty, yellowing teeth that made it obvious she'd never been one to care too much about oral hygiene throughout her many years. But the thing that surprised me most, even more than her baggy, wrinkly skin, were her hands. They were crooked and arthritic from decades of massaging people for a living, and it was honestly a wonder how in the world she was able to still do this job with her hands in such a state. We went through what I imagine is the basic small talk before a massage. It was like talking to my grandmother after avoiding her for a couple of years. Except I was half in laying face down on a table. But then she began the massage, and immediately I knew that it wasn't what I had imagined. I hadn't really had the foresight to understand what deep tissue meant, but I was learning in that moment as this sharp old woman began to dig her jagged elbows into the pressure points all over my back. I groaned and squirmed, but she was unfazed. She even put her weight on me to keep me steady. I bit my tongue and tried to bear through it, hoping that it would eventually feel good if I got through the initial shock of it. That did not work. It only got worse. At some point, it felt like she was straight up just punching me in the back like some bad CPR.
Mommy! Mom! Help me!
The dentist
Climbed up onto the table and stood on top of me, walking up and down my back and burying the heels of her feet into the notches of my spine. She then did the unthinkable and began jumping on me like I was some kind of trampoline. I could feel so many cracks in my joints, but it honestly felt more like my bones themselves were breaking.
I learned from the best.
It was obvious she had no intention of going easy on me, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get used to it, let alone enjoy it. When she started walking on my neck and cutting off my windpipe, I couldn't take it anymore.
Mommy! Mom! Help me!
The dentist
Walking up and down my back and burying the heels of her feet into the notches of my spine. She then did the unthinkable and began jumping on me like I was some kind of trampoline. I could feel so many cracks in my joints, but it honestly felt more like my bones themselves were breaking. It was obvious she had no intention of going easy on me, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get used to it, let alone enjoy it. When she started walking on my neck and cutting off my windpipe, I couldn't take it anymore.